Yeah. Good evening, all. Welcome to this space. Uh, so this is my first time I'm hosting a space, so please bear with me, even if I fumble a little bit. To begin with, I would like to thank Nitin ji for his generosity in sending the copy of his book, and I warmly welcome him to this space. Um I'd like to start with, I'd like to ask him how did his journey unfold from being a civil engineer to entering the world of traditional Hindu scholarship.
Uh, Thank you for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here. I hope I'm audible clearly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Uh, so I think rather than transition from civil engineering to this, I believe the real transition happened much before from kind of going on the path to atheism and kind of skepticism in my school days to kind of a rediscovery of Hindu identity, first at a political level and later at a more deeper philosophical and spiritual and religious level. So, and I think even before when I was studying my engineering, more than around 20 years ago, even then I was continuously engaged with Hindu issues in an internet platform on across, much before Facebook and Twitter and other things. There was Orkut, and much before that, there were many forums where I used to discuss and debate on many of these issues, both political and religious and civilizational. And so that kind of trajectory, more and more became substantial as and when, as I try to engage more in depth. It was mostly a personal exploration of truth and of philosophy on my own, and that led to study of Hindu tradition, to answer questions for myself to begin with, because my journey or entry into atheism had begun because of refusal to, or because of lack of means to get answers to the questions. So when I started my own, it kind of a full circle. And as more and more answers I discovered, more and more I was convinced of our dharma, our civilization. And then I thought that writing would be a good means to express my thoughts, express what I have discovered, express mm, what I have learned with others in a more easier access manner. So that is why I started my very first blog very long back in Yahoo 360. That Yahoo 360 no longer exists today. But that is how it started for me, that wanted to write because I wanted to express myself, my thoughts on being Hindu, and thoughts about our civilization, history, and dharma. And with time, through some encouragement, some from friends and well-wishers, and I kept writing. So even when I was studying for civil engineering, I used to contribute some small articles, opinion pieces to Pioneer newspaper, and later to some websites such as Vijayvani.com, which was run by Sandhya Jain and many others. And so that was how my interest in writing as a skill, writing as something that deeply appeals to me, developed. And from the very beginning, what I wanted to write was for Sanatan Dharma. I never had any particular interest to write on something else. Like I could easily have taken a path of career or technical writing, for example, because writing is something I have been always comfortable with, but that never appealed to me. So writing for Sanatana Dharma has been something that deeply drives me, and that has been so for the last 20 years. Sanatana Dharma, India, Bharata, our civilization, our future. These are geopolitics. All these topics are of deep interest to me for the same reason. And civil engineering was, of course, something I chose purely for, for a career purpose. And I was in construction for around 5 years. But what I realized was, when I was in college, I thought that it is possible to, uh, um, pursue a path of career, but at the same time also pursue what you truly love on the side, or balance it. But to my surprise and perhaps shock, I discovered when I joined construction, the few years I was in, and that my writing had come down to uh, almost nil productivity for the lack of time to engage with any serious study, or more than study. Even if you manage some time for study, then you will hardly get any time to write and express yourself. So when I was in engineering, I used to write more frequently. I used to write one or two pieces every month, some blogs, some newspaper opinion pieces, and long posts on social media. And it all of them kind of came to a still. And so this was something that was in the back of the mind. That was something uh, because I had to, because of lack of time and other things, I had to stop doing something that I truly loved, which was exploring dharma, writing on dharma. And towards, I think, 2012, 2013, by Bhagavad Kripa, I was able to get into more of, um, more Vedanta oriented. I started studying Ishavasya Upanishad. I remember that I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to find some 60 minutes to study, because I had to leave for office at 6:37 in the morning. And so that kind of, that went on for a year, my engagement with this text. And that kind of, rekindled that interest and study. And uh, I think by 2014-15, I was, considering looking for some options wherein I can, I can pursue the livelihood thing, but also at the same time an option which truly appeals to me, wherein I can express myself, I can, do the things that I truly want to do the things that I truly love to do, which is writing for dharma, for Bharata. And so thankfully, again, all due to Bhagavati's anugraha, I managed to, I got an opportunity when I was still working in civil engineering, and I got an opportunity to shift my, career. So I shifted to a job wherein as a staff writer, wherein I had to, my goal, or my whatever target was to write, and write each day, every single day. I had to write one or two articles every day. And at that time, that I joined this organization called Newsgram, where I was there for 6-7 months. And I wrote every day, and literally on many miscellaneous topics, but I also wrote on Hindu Dharma, and a lot of very timely pieces. You could still, I think, they have in their database some of these articles on Dharma, on Hindu issues affecting our Hindu civilization, our society, etc. And later, I think it was in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, then I joined India Facts as its editor. Again, these are all works that I truly, appeal to me, because it gave me a feeling of doing something for the larger good, for the civilization good. And I was with IndiaPex for 4 years, and I edited. We brought out many reports such as Hindu human rights reports that 2-3 years successfully we brought out, and I published my first series of articles on menstruation, which eventually became a book, later. So kind of I was finally in this field of work wherein the work itself is appealing and meaningful to me, but at the same time, along with it, I also have enough time to pursue my own personal study, research into the Shastras, into our civilization, and write, through books, through articles, and attend podcasts and discussions such as this. So, and 2020 onwards, I'm full time with this Indica Moksha, Dvaita Academy, which was previously Advaita Academy, focused on Vedanta, again, something which is close to my heart. And I have continued to do what I have been doing with my books and other things.
Yeah. I mean, it is very interesting to know that you started as an atheist because I think a lot of people in the audience would relate with that. Another question I had was that, like, was this a personal exploration or did you find a guide along the way, a guru who could help you with understanding the foundations of how to approach these texts? Because I think this is something that youngsters like us struggle a little bit because of how the modern world works right now.
I think if you see it purely from a Vyavaharika perspective, it has been a personal exploration to me, and through various books primarily, but also through meeting with various people. Um, and the exploration kind of started at a political level. One fine day, I think when I was in 11th or 12th, I came across photos of this Godhra train burning, and that was kind of a realization that irrespective of what my belief is for the enemy, I am a Hindu. Yeah, so that was a kind of a uh, mental, mind altering, worldview altering realization. And later on, of course, I have been of a philosophical bent for a long time. And so a political identity was not enough. So I kept exploring. First, studied a lot of, Indian history, Hindu history, especially books by Sitaram Goyal ji and Ram Swarup ji, and the whole bunch of books by Voice of India publications. So, and of course, that was only the historical part, and books such as Living with Himalayan Masters by Swami Rama. They kind of opened a different dimension to me, that all these stories about the rishis and tapasya, they're not just stories of some previous yuga or some mythology, but we still have yogis and tapasvis today with us uh, uh, who are with us, who can make the impossible possible. So this realization kind of removed the uh, skeptical mind and replaced it by renewed enthusiasm to study further, to research further, discover further. And what started, and so more and more, it took me on the path on one hand towards the sadhana at the personal level. At the same time, also towards the philosophical exploration. I have been fortunate to have some guidance from in one form or the other form, all purely, Bhagavati Anugraha, uh, in the personal sadhana, in also in philosophy and stuff. Uh, Through the Anugraha, had some intuitive understanding that I always utilize when studying the Shastra. And I consider I and my family, we belong to, as a family, through tradition, we belong to Sringeri Sharda Peetham. and the Jagadgurus, Sri Swami Bharati Tirtha Swamigal and now Vidishekara Bharatigal, I consider them as my gurus. So with their anugraham, I have been able to, study and understand. And as far as guidance, I can share that, my kind of a entry into Vedanta, I happened through a series of lectures that Jagadguru Shankaracharya Sri Bharati Tirtha Swamigal had delivered in 2011-12 during his Vijay Yatra during Chaturmasya. So obviously I could not, I was in Odisha then. Much later, I think a year after this, this lecture was delivered, they were published on YouTube in the Sringeri Mutt channel. So that was my actual entry into Vedanta in a formal sense, because those, I think 10 or 12 lectures, they were the Upadesha that kind of, when I watched it on YouTube, I made the notes, I read, reread, reflected upon it. And that was the foundation on which I then studied the Ishavasya Upanishad, and I have studied many other texts on and off. I have been engaged with that. So all I can say is through anugraha of the Gurus, anugraha of Bhagavati, I have been fortunate to engage with the Shastra Parampara, and I strongly believe that the Shastra itself is a Guru, and I have expressed this many times. And this is something which is known in the tradition, that even if you do not have a human Guru, so Shiva is the Adi Guru, and we can always pray to him. And there is a beautiful shloka, Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavot Vyapta Dehaya Sri Dakshina Murte Nama. So the Sri Dakshina Murti, the Shiva in his form of a Guru, he is Ishvara, he is Guru, and he is also our Atma. So the Guru is always inside you, always. So you just need to surrender to that Guru, you need to surrender to that Bhagavati, and in one way or the other way, the nature, the Bhagavati will guide you. That ultimate Guru, Bhagavan Dakshinamurti, will guide you in some form or the other. And one of the form is the text itself, the Shastra itself. And the more you engage with it, the more honest you are in your engagement, the more with Shraddha you do it, and more with patience and forbearance. So I remember somebody once told me this, when I was struggling to understand certain aspects of the Shastra. Somebody told me, engaging with the Shastra is like a, flowing river against the rock. The water cannot simply, break the rock in a single, flow. But the same river water, when it is flowing for hundreds of years, slowly, it causes, the rocks to the surface, and the layer by layer, it washes it, and initially it breaks down the rock. We call it in science, we call it as weathering of the rocks, if I'm not mistaken. So I was told that the knowledge, Vidya, is like that. You cannot digest everything in a single instance. So you keep engaging with it slowly, with patience, with Shraddha, with utmost sincerity, again and again and again, with reiteration. And with each reiteration, new dimensions will open up, and eventually, over a period of time, it may be 1 year, it may be 10 years, it may be whole lives, it may be many lives, it all depends. You will, if with sincerity and Shraddha, you will eventually be able to master that Vidya. So this understanding has been a guiding force to me, and I have complete conviction in the veracity of it. And through Anugraha, I have discovered this, especially in the study of Manusmriti, for example. this is a controversial text, no doubt about it. There is one controversy every other day, and but the Shraddha, that conviction that I just shared with you, has resulted in that many doubts that I have had, say, some 7 years ago, uh, I have been eventually reconciled, eventually resolved, eventually some insight have come to me when, engaging, studying and reflecting, as in the Vedanta they say, the methodology to engage is Shravana Manana Nididhyasa. You start with, hearing the teaching or the reading of the teaching, and then intellectually reflecting upon it, and then, meditating upon it. So you have to repeat this process again and again and again. And eventually, because as I said, the guru is within, and when the mind is focused and when the mind is pure enough, the answers will reveal itself. The Dakshinamurti teaches through silence. And the teaching through silence is the teaching which comes from your heart, from your hridaya inside you. And I firmly believe that, to all the listeners, I want to say this. Uh, it is very good to have a physical guru. And if you are fortunate to study under a physical guru, a real guru, a Shastravit guru, then there is uh, no replacement for that. But even if you do not have it, it is good, Bhagavan is with everybody. We should pray the Bhagavan for a guru, and we should engage with whatever means available to make a beginning of the study. So, this is how, at least how I look at it. At the same time, of course, I have had teachers also for Manusmriti. For example, I have studied certain portions of Manusmriti under Vidwan Venkataramana Hegdeji, who is the professor and head of the department of Dharma Shastras in Maharaja Mysore College, and I have had the fortune to discuss with a lot of friends who are great Shastra scholars and Vidwans on many different topics and learn from them. So again, I would all bring out everything to that, I for example, at Indica Moksha, we run this Advaita Academy channel, YouTube channel, and we have more than 12,000 videos from authentic teachers on various aspects of Hindu Dharma, especially on Vedanta, on core Hindu texts. So if you do not have a guru, you can make a beginning by checking out our channel. All the videos are freely available, and they are from the traditional scholars. They are from the Shastravit scholars. So you can make a beginning somewhere, listen, reflect, and implement what is possible, and include, Bhagavat Aradhana in your life. Then things will slowly happen on its own.
Uh, yeah, I think it is like the listeners will, uh, I think the listeners should watch the videos on the channel. And I personally have watched a few of them, and I really benefited from those in understanding the high philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. Coming to the book, the first section of your book really stood out for me because many of the criticisms against Shastra that the online right wing, we can say, that puts out, it has been addressed quite brilliantly. So, uh, I mean, uh, like instead of starting with the commentary, what you discuss about epistemology and the importance of Shabda Pramana, that was very insightful. Why do you think this foundation of these basic things about Hindu philosophy is lacking in modern readers, and what can the readers or the listeners can do about this to overcome the fetters of modernity that have caused, like, it has made it difficult to read these texts which sound controversial and don't align with the principles of Western enlightenment, uh, and uh, so
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. Excellent question. I think that is a very, very important question. And one of the reasons why, I included the introductory chapters to begin with. The modernity, one of the consequences of modernity has been to fundamentally change our drishti, to mold us to uh, have a Indian body, but with a colonized mind. So we are no longer on an everyday basis. We are no longer fully functioning as a independent Hindu mind. So we are a colonized Hindu mind. We have kind of retained certain Hinduness, certain anchoring is still there. Partly, thanks to the diverse nature of our society, our civilization, and the anchorage is there, but also partly due to certain reformulation, certain representations by our great Swamis and teachers such as Swami Vivekananda, Aurobindo, etc. That contribution is also there, that we have retained certain anchorage to Hindu view. But however, at the same time, most people, including myself, I can say, add here, that what we consider Hindu itself is also kind of distorted, again, due to this modernity. And the worldview we function it, one of the most significant aspect of this modernity is the histocentric narrative, histocentric worldview. Like every text, every action, everything is, analyzed, is tried to understood through a lens of historicism. Right. So, whenever a question, for example, recently there was a debate about Ramayana, right? Just I think 2-3 days back this happened, and one of the first responses that came was, "Oh no, this Uttarakhanda is an interpolation." So this is a typical historicist response. This is a typical, and this response is, I think, convincing to most Hindus in general, because we have all been trained to look at things from a historicist lens. But this was not so 200-300 years back, when the Shastriya matters were discussed using Shastriya lens, using Shastriya categories of analysis. A philosophical category of analysis, a theological category of analysis, using the epistemology, ontology, and all these ideas which are rooted in basically dharmic worldview. So now that worldview itself has changed. We may call ourselves Hindu, we may celebrate our festivals, but at the same time, we are unable to think, unable to articulate, unable to anchor our thoughts in our own worldview. So that is the reason why every question of religious nature, of theological nature, or a philosophical nature is met with any person who objects to any Hindu practice, for example, we respond to that from a historicist perspective. So, that is what is common among all the groups currently, working in India, be it the left wing, or be it the right wing, be it the reformists, be it the Indologists, the chronologists. See, all of them agree, directly or indirectly, they adopt this historicist perspective of our core, core values, core practices, core philosophical ideas. So there is always a historicist element present there. So the moment when for example, Manusmriti is taken up. So the one of the argument you get again and again is, it is outdated. It is not needed. It was a text that may have been relevant 2000 years back. It is not relevant today. Or it was a text written for 2000 years back, and we can can gain some useful historical insights, but it is not relevant today. There is nothing relevant in it for applying today. So this is a historicist lens. Does Manusmriti itself see itself as a historical document? Does it perceive its teachings as something which is only relevant to a particular period of time? The answer is a clear no. So, if we want to engage Manusmriti, debate Manusmriti, whether it is oppressive, whether it is not oppressive, whether it has anything problematic verses, whether all its verses are problematic, whether it has something good in it, whether it has something bad in it, all the discussion cannot come before there is clarity on what is the purpose of Manusmriti, what is the object or the subject matter of the Manusmriti, how Manusmriti perceives itself as its end goal, what is its project, what is its purpose. So unless you discuss all these things, I have clarity on this, then all other debates are kind of, blind man leading the blind man. Right? We all know about that example of 4 or 5 blind men describing the elephant. Right? They all may be right to some extent that one found the legs like a pillar and such things. There might be a semblance of reality, but it is still not a true description in its entirety. Right? So this is the case with Manusmriti, but this is the case with Smritis in general, but this is the case with most Hindu texts. Right? Just today I saw a tweet, somebody mentioning about how Western philosophy truly represents Vedic ideals, whereas the Puranas distorted our ideas. See, this is a typical historicist narrative. Sri Vishwa Itluri and all have done a lot of work on this. How then, you can trace these arguments back to 200, 300 years back to Indologists from German school of Indologists who mentioning these arguments. How the original Vedic was a high culture. Later there was distortion during the Puranic period, and the same thing is also used by our reformers in the Hindu reformers of the during the British era, and even today the same arguments are repeated. So it is very important that we identify the source of our thinking and interrogate these thoughts, these frameworks, to see whether they are truly our own drishti. So because we now say that we are becoming, we want, Amrit Kal is coming and Viksit Bharat. So all these are very noble goals, no doubt about it, and there are multi-dimension to that. But at the dimension of the thought, as long as our only solution to everything is copy the problem from the West and copy the solution also from the West, then there is no, then we are still colonized mentally, we are still colonized at the level of our worldview, at the level of where we are functioning. So the only way to rectify it is to revive our own worldview, revive our own Hindu worldview, our own Dharmika worldview. And this revival of Dharmika worldview cannot happen by simply putting the name Dharma in front of everything that is happening today. So we have this, you mentioned about enlightenment values, the Western enlightenment values. So now there have been a lot of works, a lot of attempts to show that these values were actually deeply Hindu values. So there might be elements of it in Hindu civilization, no doubt about it, similar elements, but our framework is completely different from the contemporary, the modernist framework. So without realizing this, what we will do is, now feminism is in fashion, we will add Hindu to it, we'll make it Hindu feminism. But essentially we are saying the same thing that the feminists say, we simply say it is a Hindu. Similarly, there is woke culture everywhere. You say just add a Hindu to it, then you think that it becomes Hindu. That is not what revival is. The revival is you have to interrogate these questions, analyze these questions through a Hindu lens, through a Hindu basis, through an anchorage in Hindu epistemology, Hindu philosophy, Hindu ontology, and Hindu ethics. And where will we find all this basis? It is of course in our Shastra Pramana. from the Vedas to Smritis to Itihasa Puranas through the Dharma Shastra, Kama Shastra, Artha Shastra, Moksha Shastra. So we have this 14 plus 4, 18 Vidyasthanas available to us. So what we have done today, for example, take university for example. All the departments in the university reflect the bifurcation of departments as in the Western knowledge system. And everything of a Indian knowledge system or Hindu knowledge system is put into a particular department called Sanskrit department, or today now we have IKS departments or whatever it is. But what is the true solution we should work towards? Our departments should reflect our Vidyasthanas. Whatever modern knowledge or contemporary knowledge that we are currently dealing with, they can be absorbed into our traditional categories. But we are absorbing Indian knowledge, fields into contemporary categories. So the reverse has to happen. That is when, truly a Hindu drishti will come up. And so the first, coming back to the book, the first section, the first few chapters, tries to deal with these questions about what is the function and place of Dharma Shastra in Hindu society. And this is again a very repeated question. Is not Smriti irrelevant today? How is it relevant? We have our own constitution today. And all such things, ideas are there. Without understanding the actual scope of a Smriti, understanding the scope of a Dharma Shastra, as the name says, a Dharma Shastra is a Shastra, a treatise, a technical treatise, a systematic treatise, a treatise which systematically teaches about a subject matter. In this case, the subject matter is Dharma. And what is this Dharma? Dharma is something which, when performed, leads a person to Sukha, Swarga, Chitta Shuddhi, better Punarjanma, and eventually Moksha. So if you remove this definition of Dharma, then you lose the entire philosophical basis of our Sanatana Dharma. So you cannot have a discussion on Dharma without Dharma Shastra. By sidelining Dharma Shastra, by calling Dharma Shastra as outdated, or by cherry picking from Dharma Shastra to suit your own personal political agenda, or your scholarly agenda, or your chronological agenda, or your Indological agenda, or your reformist agenda, doesn't matter what your agenda is. You cannot, this is not a genuine, honest, sincere way of doing, reviving our drishti, reviving the Bharatiya drishti of approaching to various issues.
Yes, so the holistic approach of understanding the Shruti, Smriti, Itihas, Puranas, and which was evident in the book actually, because you quoted from Mahabharata, from commentaries of acharyas like Adi Shankaracharya and Ramanujacharya. But what happens is sometimes when people read, they find a lot of contradictions in what the acharyas themselves are saying, and even amongst the various smritis that are there. So that confuses the readers, and sometimes it creates a notion that these people were only giving their opinions about how society should work. And similar to that, modern Hindu thinkers are now going to give their opinion of how society should function according to today's time. So, how do we apply the principles in the Dharma Shastras in today's time, given that a lot of things that are mentioned in Smritis are like controversial, or people say that it is inapplicable today?
Okay, wonderful question again. So I think the first part of the question is about contradictions and all. There are definitely different points of view expressed in our Shastra tradition. Of course, different acharyas have, not just in the Darshanika space, that is between one philosophy and other, like Advaita versus Vishishtadvaita, or Mimamsa versus Nyaya, or not just in the Darshanika space, but even in the Dharmashastra space, there have been, the tradition have been robust. So each topic were discussed on merits, on, with many different viewpoints concerned. So we have been a Vada tradition, Vada Sampradaya. And that is a good thing. That shows that contrary to popular perception or academic perception that our texts were dead or frozen in time, we were never frozen in time. Our Shastra, our knowledge is eternal because it is also always engaged with. So it is never frozen. It is like a flowing river, right? So the point is, the same Vada Sampradaya also gives us methods to how to resolve the contradictions, or how to resolve the stipulations which at a prima facie, may appear as contradictory. Like, for example, when two Vedavakyas, for example, on a particular matter, say two different things, then the Mimamsa says that both should be considered as alternative. If they are giving two different instructions in the same context, or with all other conditions being same, then there are two alternatives and the individual can adopt any of the means. So let us pause here for a moment and understand the main aspect here. The primary concern is action, here in this particular example. The Darshanika is the orientation, but Dharma is about action. The question here is action that can lead us to our well-being, Abhyudaya Nishreyasa. The material well-being, spiritual well-being. Well-being in this life, well-being in after the death of the body, well-being in the next life, well-being in the sense of final moksha, attainment of final moksha. So it is all about action. So the importance here is what kind of guidance is to be given for a person in life. What is the path which is most suitable to that person, considering everything of that person, his rich or her ritual state, their Purva Janma karma, the karmic baggage that they have brought into this life, where they are in their journey towards moksha over multiple lives, what is their temperaments, what are their likes, dislikes, or what are kind of body they have, what kind of mind they have, what kind of gender they have. Considering all these conditions, many different paths have been given that can lead, all of which can lead to Abhyudaya Nishreyasa. But different paths will lead, are suitable for different people. So it is about suitability. The so-called the question of adhikara, which today often is understood as power and rights and so on. In a purely Shastriya sense, fundamentally it means the path through which one can attain the stated results. So if you are unable to attain the stated result by adopting a particular path, it means that path is not suitable for you and you are not suitable for that path. That is the essence of adhikara. It is not about exclusion, it is not about oppression, it is not about discrimination. It is about what is suitable, what path is suitable for. So in this context, you will see there are different texts, there are sometimes different, different stipulations given. So there are ways to resolve it. Say for example, a person who is following a Vaishnava Sampradaya, there the vegetarian practice of vegetarianism, a Sattvika way of life, food is very, very important. Very, very important. And there they completely reject all forms of, animal violence. But if you are following a Shakta Sampradaya, there that vegetarianism no longer becomes important. So this is a Sampradaya specific practice rooted in the particular ways of life, particular Shastriya injunctions, particular Shastriya paths given to different people. Right? Now, we have all know that kind of debates that happen, this path is superior, that path is superior. each path is superior to that person for whom that path is suitable. For the person for whom a particular path is not suitable, then that path is not superior to that person. It is inferior to that person. Unless we have this understanding, this broad-minded, this comprehensive understanding, vision, then we will miss the forest for the trees. So this is about, so there is a clear way to how to resolve the so-called apparent contradictions, between Shruti and Shruti Vakyas, Shruti and Smriti Vakyas, Shruti, Smriti and Itihasa Purana Vakyas. So these are all there already, there is a very robust tradition of Mimamsa which gives all these Nyayas to resolve this. And there are also Sampradaya specific way of resolving certain practices on this. So we don't need to, everybody does not need to know everything, because that is not useful to anyone. What is the gist here is, what is our ultimate goal of life? It is moksha. The other purushartha is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So, and we have to have this understanding, what is dharma first. So Bhagavan Krishna says, swadharma nidhanam shreya. So our primary concern has to be swadharma, understanding. The rest of the exploration is for intellectual curiosity, satisfying intellectual curiosity, intellectual enthusiasm, and all that is okay. But for practice, which is primary for us, swadharma, we have to understand what is suitable to us, what the Shastra is telling for us, and we may take the guidance of our own Sampradaya Gurus and of the Shastras and so on and so forth. Now about the question, about this contemporariness and how, people may feel that this is outdated and all. So again, it comes back to the same fundamental question, what is the role of the Shastra or the function of the Shastra? So the function of the Dharma Shastra is to reveal knowledge about Dharma. And in this, it is already giving us many different paths to Dharma that is suitable for many different kinds of people. Now, how do we adopt it to today's society, let me give with an example. Today we have, in a previous age, in a previous time, maybe 200 years, 300 years ago also, people getting married, entering a grihastha life was pretty much common. The alternative was less common. There were Naishtika brahmacharis who never got married but who stayed with their guru and practiced, studied Swadhyaya and all. And the other, there were similarly the other two groups, the one was widows and widowers, who were in the Grihastha then they lost their husbands or wives. The third group was of the Ganikas, etc., courtesans, etc., who never entered into Grihastha. There might have been few certain groups. Today also we have those groups. But today the life is more complicated. There is no similar boundaries. Today there are many people who could not get married, but they are also not brahmacharis, for example. What about them? There is a question. Do they have a path for dharma? Now Shankaracharya in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya raises this question in a discussion about why practicing Varnashrama Dharma, especially the discussion was about Ashrama Dharma. And this Ashrama Dharma is being integral to Varna Dharma, so it can be applied to there also. He says, he notes that how this Ashrama Dharma practice is very important to attain moksha. So then he raises a question. In fact, Bhagavan Vedavyasa Badarayana himself raises this question in this Brahma Sutra. So does it mean then those who do not belong to any of the ashramas, for whom this ashrama definition as a brahmachari or a grihastha or vanaprastha or sannyasa cannot be applied, what about them? Can they not attain moksha? Can they not pursue Brahma Vidya? So Vedavyasa himself says, and then Shankaracharya also elaborates, that no, everybody can pursue moksha, everybody can pursue Brahma Vidya. For them, special methods have been given. And in this context, Shankaracharya quotes Manusmriti as a evidence, as pramana, for what kind of special methods given. And he quotes one verse about how japa is something that everybody can do. Whether you do any of the ashrama dharma or not, you should do japa, because japa is very, very superior to every other means. All you need is taking a proper diksha from a guru. It is now, today we have all these debates about why should not everybody chant Gayatri. Today the Gayatris have become, Gayatri mantra is put in our, the calling bells. And there have been many musical songs on it. But do you think listening to these songs and all etc. gives us moksha? No. The same is the question about why should not everybody chant. Nobody is stopping today from anybody from doing anything, right? You cannot literally stop them. But Shastra will tell you what is the means by which you can attain Abhyudaya Nishrayas. Same in the case of Mata. The Manusmriti is already saying japa is for everybody. Shankaracharya is also saying that you need a diksha. And when you go to a guru for a diksha, that guru will give you diksha about that mantra, if he is an authentic guru, that mantra which is beneficial to you. If you have worshipped, say for example, Narasimha for the last 2 or 3 lives, and from Jyotishya, from the inner vision, that guru can see that you have that affinity for Narasimha worship, he will give you the mantra of the Narasimha. He will not suddenly give you the mantra of Kalabhairava. Right? I am just giving an example. The point here is, Manusmriti mentions japa as one such method. But Manusmriti mentions many other such methods. At one place it says that serving the parents, as long as your parents are alive, there is no other greater dharma than serving the parents, and one can attain everything through such service. You see, that is also a path of dharma. You don't need to do Veda Dhyana for it. You don't need to chant Gayatri for that. You don't need to do puja for that. If you are truly, without any expectation or without any ulterior motives, if you truly love your parents and do the shushrusha to them with as a dharmika practice, as a upasana to them, by accepting in your deepest hearts that your parents are like Shiva Parvati, Bhagavan himself, then that path will yield the result of Abhyudaya Nishrayas. Now you will say that, oh no, our parents are not like that, they don't like us, they favor my brother, my sister. See, all that are there. Those are Vyavaharika problems. Right? But the Shastriya technique still remains valid if you are able to do it. If your circumstances will allow you to do it. But you do not have all those problems for chanting japa, right? So the point I am trying to make is, you analyze, you do not, the Shastras, such as Smritis and all, they were not created out of the, a certain society at certain point had some beliefs and they created a text to express this belief. No. Because these beliefs keep changing. What our parents believed 50 years ago is not same as what we believe today. So, if we have to write a new smriti, new text for changing social mores and our whims and fancies, then even writing a smriti every day will not be enough. Because not everybody will agree with that smriti. Right? So then what is the relevance of smriti then? It cannot be this. This is a historicist perspective. The smriti itself is saying that I am teaching dharma. How does Manusmriti start? A group of rishis approach Swayambhuva Manu, who is sitting in meditation, and ask him to teach about dharma that is beneficial to everybody. They did not say, tell us about how the society functioned in your times. Oh Manu, we want historical information. Or they did not say, give us a gist of what all the beliefs of people in our society today. He did not say that. They are asking him for teachings about dharma. And dharma has a specific definition I already mentioned. So, instead of trying to force fit contemporary biases, understandings, expectations, everything onto the Shastra, try to use the Shastra as an anchor, as a treatise teaching dharma, and then analyze the society from it. And what is the purpose of such analysis? The purpose is to derive teachings which will help to resolve contemporary issues, which will help to guide people today to work towards Abhyudaya Nishresa, is to help society today to create a harmonious society, to create Yogakshema in the society. And that is something which is needed all the time. Yogakshema is something which will remain the need of a society, any society across the world, even 2000 years from today. Abhyudaya Nishresa, well-being, don't all of us want to be happy? Just because we are living in 21st, 22nd century, is it that we crave for unhappiness, crave for sadness? No. So, if you want to be happy, then you have to perform dharma. You may derive pleasure from artha and kama, but if you want to derive those pleasure also in a way which is least harmful, then you have to align it with dharma, anchor it within the boundaries of dharma. So I already gave you the example of how to use the Shastriya methods to interpret, to address contemporary issues. So today we have a lot of people who do not belong to any of the Shastriya categories of Varna, Ashram and all. It's okay. Manusmriti also tells about methods through which they can attain Abhyudaya Nishresa. So therefore Manusmriti will be relevant even today, even in a society wherein there will not be any of the four Varnashramas. Just imagine such a society. One of the goals of contemporary reformist Hindutva is to create such a Varnashrama-less society. So let us assume that such a society exists. Even then, the Manusmriti or other Smritis will be valid, because even then, to know what is the method to Abhyudaya Nishresa, we have to rely upon this Shastra Pramana. Otherwise, what is a guarantee that whatever we think is correct will lead us to Abhyudaya Nishresa? Do we have any other means than the Shastras to know what actions will lead us to Swarga and what actions will take us to Naraka? What actions will take us to Moksha, to lead to Chitta Shuddhi? We don't have any other means than this, right? So, this is very important, that we lose sight of this fact. Fine, in the Manusmriti, in the Smriti Shastras, in the Vyavahara section, which is about legal jurisprudence, you may say that, oh no, our society has changed and all. See, the society has deviated from the ideal of Dharma. The Dharma Shastra has not become redundant. So we have to recognize where the deviation is, and if the deviation is good for us, fine. If the deviation is not good for us, then we have to make correction. If the deviation is good, or it is something that cannot be changed, fine. Then you learn to use the Shastras to do what is necessary within the limitations of whatever it is. Because we are living in Kali Yuga, this is an observation, not just mine. Swami Vidyaranya in his Parashara Madhava, which was written during Vijayanagara times, he observes, he asks the questions very clearly. He says, look, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, etc., all these categories in the Shastra, the ideals that have been mentioned, we don't see them on the ground. We don't see these ideal practices. Maybe very, very small section may be doing it, but in general, all the practices that the Shastra mention, we don't see it on the ground. 100% we don't see. So does it mean we simply throw away the Shastras into dustbin? No. He says, Yatha Shakti. He says that doshas are two types. One is the Yuga dosha. The Kali Yuga itself is, the nature of the Kali Yuga is that it prevents you from living 100% dharmic life. The second is, we have our own internal doshas, that is, Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, etc. The Arishad Vargas, the lust, anger, and all those things, and the kind of karmic burden we have brought from our previous lives, all these complicated things prevents us from pursuing dharma. Even say 20%, 30% is a very difficult thing. So, Swami Vidyaranya says, Yuga faults we cannot do anything, but we can work upon our individual faults slowly, and it cannot happen on one fine day. We cannot simply overcome all our Kama, Krodha, etc. in a single day. It may not be possible even in a single life, but we have to make an attempt. Yatha Shakti, we have to practice dharma. Shankaracharya says, Geyam Geetam Nama Sahasram. Every day chant Bhagavad Gita, Parayana of Bhagavad Gita, and then Parayana of Vishnu Sahasranama. Why? When you take Bhagwan's name such as in Sahasranama, then there is a Chitta Shuddhi happening in the back, because there is no greater Chitta Shuddhi than taking Bhagwan's name, and that is something everybody can do without any other restrictions. Without any other, everybody has adhikara, without any other criteria. That is something universal. Similarly, why study Gita? If you do the engagement with the Shastra again and again and again, that also creates Chitta Shuddhi. That also creates more firmness in the mind that we have to try to live according to the teachings of the Shastras. You see, all these are connected. So the point I am trying to make is, even in today's society, the question about how Manusmriti or how the Smritis or any of the Shastras are relevant is that they are very much relevant to know what is dharma, what is the path to the practice dharma, path which will take us towards moksha. You cannot attain moksha without first stabilizing and standing on both, in a stabilized way, firmly on the mountain of dharma, on the path of dharma. Unless you stand firm on the path of dharma, you cannot pursue moksha. It is simply not possible. I hope this answer was useful.
Yes. It was like you elaborated very succinctly what the whole question that was like you addressed it very nicely, and even like I was hearing the discourse of Shri Bharati Tirtha Swamiji, and about following of Shastra, he said something similar that we cannot follow it completely, but what we can, we should, and we should also try to increase our capacity to follow it. Coming to the second section, like you chose to comment on the first four verses. Like you have given the reason in the book, but for the benefit of the audience, could you please explain why only the four verses and not the whole text?
Yes. So Manusmriti is a very vast text. It has 2,650 plus, I think 2,670 or something like that verses. The first four verses are very key because they act as a gateway to understand the rest of the text. Not just the rest of the text, to gateway to understand the rest of the Dharma Shastra itself. They are the gateway that help us to understand Sanatana Dharma, or the term Dharma in the Sanatana Dharma itself. Because the first four verses deal with what in the Shastriya language is called as Anubandha Chatushtaya, the fourfold connections which deal with, the Vishaya, the subject matter of the text, the Adhikari, that is who is the intended audience of the text, and what is the relationship among these, and what is the phala, the end result, the end goal. Why should one study a text? Why should one put in effort to study the text? What is the utility of the text? So these are all very fundamental questions, as I mentioned earlier, that without understanding these questions or having a wrong understanding of these questions, the rest of our engagement will always be tainted by those wrong understanding, wrong perception, our biases, preconceived notions. So one good example is what is dharma. So the Vishaya of Manusmriti is dharma. But if you don't recognize this dharma as the Vishaya, and when I say dharma, what does it mean? It means an action which when performed leads to sukha, swarga, chitta shuddhi, better punarjanma, and eventually to moksha. And it also includes the opposite, that is adharma, whose performance will lead to dukkha, sorrow, and naraka, suffering after the death of the body. And when you have punarjanma, it will be full of more suffering. And similarly, more samsara bandhana, that is, it will not lead to chitta shuddhi, purification of the mind, but instead it will lead to more chitta bhranti, that is, more confusion, more delusion, leading to more bondage, more reckless pursuit of arthakama without any vivekam, without any jnanam, without any control. So this being the case, this is what dharma, the Vishaya is. Unless you root, whenever you study the Dharma Shastra, if this is not in the back of the mind, that Abhyudaya Nishrayasa is the goal, is what the text is saying, you will always end up reading certain ideas that you already have, the worldviews that you have, the ideas, such as, you will try to read, for example, you try to search for where is equality. Oh, this is not equality. Oh, this is hierarchy. Oh, this is discrimination. Oh, this is problematic. This is anti-women. But is it the agenda of Manusmriti to be anti-women, like many people accuse? That does the text itself says that the purpose of this text is to tell you how to control women, how to oppress women? No. It is telling, oh Maharshi Manu, teach me dharma. And what is dharma? Dharma is that which leads to Abhyudaya Nishrayasa. And in the text itself, in the first chapter, it says what? Bhagavan created dharma. He created the categories of dharma and adharma to distinguish between two buckets of action. One, dharma leading to swarga, etc. The other leading to naraka, etc. So the Manusmriti itself is clear what it is teaching. With this knowledge, when you stumble upon a verse such as Nastri Swatantram Arhati, women do not have, it is translated usually as women do not deserve independence, because they translate Arhati as independence. Now, the moment you read it without background of this Chatuh Shloki, this Anubandha Chatushtaya, then the first thought that will come is, of course, oh, see, they want to control women. They want to restrain them. They want to, put them behind the doors. They want to financially restrain them. They want to politically restrain them. They want to socially restrain them. They want to oppress them. But does Manusmriti saying any of these things? No. What is the first line? It says, Pitatu Rakshati Kaumari. That the key phrase is Rakshana. So the Swatantra here is Arakshana, that is lack of protection. a state of unprotectedness, a state of vulnerability. So it is saying that women in a society should never be put into a state of desperation, to a state of vulnerability. Their well-being should always be ensured, and it is a duty of the menfolk. This is the gist of the verse. You see, the meaning that we are deriving when you do not have the background about dharma as the Vishaya of the Manusmriti, and when you have that background, the meaning derived is completely different. Similarly, there are verses in the same Manusmriti about Sri Dharma, about Sadhvi Dharma, the Pativrata Dharma. There also, the very term dharma includes that it is a method for women to attain Abhyudaya Nishresa. And that Pativrata Dharma is the most suitable, most easiest, most strongest, most method, most beneficial method for women to attain Abhyudaya Nishresa in this yuga. But that does not mean there are no other methods. To practice Pativrata Dharma, there are a lot of eligibility criteria are also needed. One-pointed dedication to, the Shushruksha is also the element of it. So you may not like these ideas today, fine. But the fact that one does not like this idea of Shushruksha means that one is not eligible to that path. Fine. Then there are other paths for you. I mentioned about japa, tapas and all those. That is also fine. See, the nature of the Kali Yuga is there is no ideal husband, there is no ideal wife. The question is whether we can together, whether a husband and wife can come together to pursue that goal of dharma, artha, kama, moksha in a together way, despite all disagreements, despite all the fights and everything, whether they can maintain that affection and respect and love and trust and do that, or whether they secretly hate each other. Right? That is what happens on the ground. So Shastra is not inducing either hate or love. Shastra in fact is trying to inspire you to live a loving relationship. Again and again the same Manusmriti says, Yatra narestu pujyante te ramante devata. The family where the women of the family, be it the wife or mother or sister-in-law, doesn't matter. If they are unhappy, if they cry, if they are in state of sorrow, hidden or explicit, if they are put in pain, and in that house, no other spiritual action, no other ritual, no other tapas will work. They will not give result. So these are the nuances of dharma. They are all very much relevant. If you want to attain Swarga, if you want to pursue moksha, then you have to make an effort to orient yourself to this vision, to these teachings. You cannot say, as I said, I will lead a dharmika life, but I will not follow, I will not try to even align myself to Dharma Shastra. I will simply throw it into the dustbin, Dharma Shastras into the dustbin, and I will define my own dharma. One may define dharma in a limited sense of ethics. All of us have intuition. All of us intuitively know that, hurting somebody is wrong. But still there are criminals who hurt others. Even we ourselves often hurt others through our words. We cannot stop ourselves. Right? But otherwise, you cannot see, other than these certain intuitive aspects, our intuition is also corrupted. Because even a murderer can justify his murder. A rapist can justify his rape. So these are extreme examples. But in our day-to-day life, we always justify our actions. So without the basis of the Shastra, you will always be justifying our actions, but the result of action is not dependent upon how we intellectually justify our actions. It is dependent upon whether an action is dharma or adharma. And what the Shastra is telling is only what the Shastra is doing is only that it is telling us, this is dharma, this is adharma. The Shastra does not have the capacity to push us to practice either dharma or adharma. It is the responsibility is our own. How we utilize Shastra, whether we ignore it, practice it, make good use of it, it is all up to us. So coming back to Chatuh Shloki, that Anubandha Chatushta is very, very important. To understand the very basis, the foundational vision, the gateway to a larger understanding. And we have a precedence in our tradition, such as we have this Chatuh Sutri Brahma Sutra, the very first 4 verses of Brahma Sutra are taken, as the gist of the whole text, as a bird's eye view of the whole text. And we have, Chatuh Shloki Bhagavatam, wherein it is not the first 4 verses, but the Chatuh Shloki Bhagavatam is a set of 4 shlokas that comes somewhere in, I think it is not the very beginning, but somewhere down the line it comes, and which is considered as the very essence of the Bhagavatam. So now the Chatuh Shloki Manusmriti, the title I gave because the Anubandha Chatushtaya is also in a sense, it is the essence in the sense that it tells us the important elements of, the 4, the Adhikari, etc. that I already mentioned, but it also tells us about Dharma, which is the key element here. It tells us about Varnashrama. It tells us about, the Rishis say, tell us about the Varna of, give us Upadesha for the Dharma of the people who belong to the designations of 4 Varnas, as well as those who do not belong to this designation, for whom you cannot classify them into these 4 Varnas. Even for them, tell us the Dharma. What is the path to their Abhyudaya Nishchaya? So in a sense, it gives a gist in a tangential sense, but more importantly, it is a gateway, and that is why I decided to focus on this first 4 verses. And I believe it is very important to understand, to begin a honest, sincere engagement with the Dharma Shastra. This book, Chatuh Shloki Manusmriti, will be great help. It will be a companion to study Manusmriti. It is a companion to study any Dharma Shastra text, for that matter.
Yes, that is something I would like you to know. I am part of a book club which is started by Upward. So the next book that we are going to have a discussion on is Chatuh Shloki Manusmriti. So from in the next week we will be starting with the discussion on the book there.
Oh, that is very nice to know. I look forward to it.
Yes. Like now I would like to open the space for the audience. If they have any questions, they can raise their hand and I will make them the speaker. Please be respectful while asking the questions, and yeah. Doesn't even have a question. Like, if not, then I have some questions. I will ask those. Okay, I don't think anybody seems to have a question. Okay, someone has requested. Wait a minute. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Verma. Okay.
नमस्ते.
मैं हिंदी में कर सकता हूँ प्रश्न?
हाँ बोलिए.
हाँ, क्योंकि मैं एक मनुस्मृति का शोध कर रहा हूँ, मतलब कि शोध छात्र हूँ. तो मेरा एक प्रश्न है, क्योंकि मेरा साइटेशंस बेस्ड काम है कि मनुस्मृति के उद्धरणों के आधार पे काम करना. तो एक प्रश्न मन में है कि जैसे कि ऋग्वेद है, ऋग्वेद की जो साकल संहिता है, तो साकल संहिता में मैंने मनु को सायण के कॉमेंट्रीज के आधार पे खोजा, तो 69 प्लस में 2 71 बार मनु का प्रयोग आया है उसके अंदर सायण के अनुसार। तो एक मन में अचानक प्रश्न आया कि जो वर्तमान में मनुस्मृति जिसके प्रवक्ता भृगु ऋषि हैं, वो किस कल्प के, किस मनवंतर के, किस मनु के द्वारा प्रयुक्त किया गया है, मतलब किस मनु के वचन है। अब क्योंकि हम ये नहीं बोल सकते कि वो स्वयंभू मनु के हैं या वैवस्वत मनु के हैं, क्योंकि स्वयंभू मनु के होते तो फिर उनका भी देखना पड़ेगा कि वो किस कल्प के हैं, क्योंकि मानते हैं कि ब्रह्मा जी जो वर्तमान में 51वें वर्ष में चल रहे हैं और 51वें वर्ष में अभी उनका श्वेत बारह कल्प है, और जो श्वेत बारह कल्प होता है महीने में 30 कल्प जो होते हैं उनमें वो पहला कल्प आता है। तो महीने में जो पहला कल्प श्वेत बारह कल्प चल रहा है, श्वेत बारह कल्प भी ब्रह्मा जी की किस आयु के कल्प के अंतर्गत गणित है। तो मेरा एक्चुअल में प्रश्न यही है कि वह किस कल्प के, किस मनवंतर के, किस मनु के वचन के रूप में है। मेरा बस सामान्यतः यही प्रश्न है।
ओके, बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग प्रश्न है। आई थिंक इतना इंफॉर्मेशन तो कोई भी शास्त्र में, कोई भी टेक्स्ट में नहीं दिया गया कि कौन से कल्प का कौन से इसका मनु है, लेकिन मनुस्मृति में हमको जो इंफॉर्मेशन मिलता है वो यही है कि वो स्वयंभुव मनु ही है, जिनका उपदेश इस स्मृति में दिया गया है। लेकिन मैं आपको मेरा पुस्तक का पहला अध्याय जो इंट्रोडक्टरी चैप्टर है उसको पढ़ने के लिए वो डायरेक्ट करूंगा, क्योंकि इस अध्याय में मैंने यही क्वेश्चन, ऑथरशिप वाला क्वेश्चन पे डिस्कस किया है। एंड बेसिकली हम ये बोल सकते हैं कि जो ओरिजिनेशन ऑफ द ट्रेडिशन ऑफ धर्मशास्त्र, इट इज ट्रेस्ड बैक टू स्वयंभुव मनु। एंड मेरा पर्सनल ओपिनियन है कि हर कल्प में जब स्वयंभुव मनु आते हैं तो हर कल्प में जब आएंगे तो पहला मनु में, मनवंतर में, उनका एक ग्रंथ मानव धर्मशास्त्र रचा जाएगा। एंड वही से वही ट्रेडिशन गुरु शिष्य परंपरा में और अलग अलग लाइन्स ऑफ रिसेंशन के ट्रांसमिशन के थ्रू वो अलग अलग रूप में वही धर्म का जो बोध है अलग अलग रूप में वो ट्रांसमिट होता जाएगा। एंड अभी हमारे पास जो एक्सटेंट टेक्स्ट जो बोलते हैं, जो अभी हमारे पास जो टेक्स्ट अवेलेबल है जिसमें 2650 से ज्यादा श्लोक है, वो बेसिकली वो उसी, इट बिलोंग्स टू दैट स्कूल ऑफ थॉट। वो जो भृगु प्रोक्त के जो स्कूल ऑफ ट्रांसमिशन है उससे आया हुआ है। लेकिन हम इस टेक्स्ट को माना कि मे बी डेटिंग कर सकते हैं, कुछ इंडोलॉजिस्ट बोलते हैं ये 2000 बीसी में किया था, 200 बीसीए से 200 एडी तक, वो सब स्पेकुलेटिव डेटिंग है। बट इवन इफ हम उसको सही मानेंगे तो वो भी, वो जो है वो सिर्फ करंट टेक्स्ट की बात हो रहा है, लेकिन जो धर्मशास्त्र है वो इससे पुराना है, जो इट गोज बैक टू स्वयंभुव मनु। लेकिन वी कैन नॉट से दैट कि वो, एटलीस्ट मेरे लिमिटेड नॉलेज में मैंने कोई भी टेक्स्ट में ये नहीं देखा कि एग्जैक्टली कौन सा स्वयंभुव मनु था, कौन से कल्प के थे, कहाँ के थे, ये इन्फॉर्मेशन कहीं भी मैंने नहीं देखा है। लेकिन सब जगह जो कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन जो मैं कलेक्ट कर पाया, जो मैं पुस्तक में लिखा है, वो महाभारत से हो या कुछ दूसरी जगह से हो, वो सब यही बोलते हैं कि ब्रह्मा जी जो है वो मनु को बताते हैं, या नारायण जी मनु को बताते हैं। मनु उसके बाद एक ग्रंथ बनाते हैं जो बहुत बड़ा रहता है, एंड उन्होंने कुछ ऋषियों को उसको सिखाते हैं, जो उसके बाद वहां से वो डिफरेंट लाइन्स ऑफ रिसेंशन, जो स्कूल्स ऑफ ट्रांसमिशन है, वो चालू होता है। वो कब होता है एग्जैक्टली ये इंफॉर्मेशन तो नहीं है, एंड मुझे लगता है इस इंफॉर्मेशन का कोई जरूरत भी नहीं है, क्योंकि ये चीज हर साइकिल में होता रहता है, अगेन एंड अगेन एंड अगेन। तो एटलीस्ट हमको इसका धर्म को समझने के लिए इस इंफॉर्मेशन का कोई यूटिलिटी नहीं है, ये मेरा पर्सनल ओपिनियन है। बट देयर इज अ बिग चैप्टर ऑन ऑथरशिप, ऑन ट्रांसमिशन, ये आप जरूर पढ़िए मेरे पुस्तक में, जो पहला अध्याय है, इट डील्स विद दिस।
Uh, okay, so go ahead, Jay bhai.
Namaskar. So,
Namaste. Yeah.
Nitinji, you had mentioned that there was active debate amongst the rishis and various religious figures about on the subjects of the smritis and whatnot, and hence they cannot be considered dead texts. Now, my question is that we certainly haven't had any smritis or anything updated in the last 500 years, at least to my knowledge. So when this is more of a historical question, when did it stop, roughly? I think Yajnavalkya Smriti's updations are the latest in around 1100 CE, right? Approximately. That is, so my first question is more, when did the discussions and let's say updations of the Smritis last happen? And why do you think they stopped? And if we were to restart them, what would be the necessary conditions to do so?
Okay, excellent question. My first disagreement is with the very usage of the term called updation. So, updation of a smriti is a problematic usage, problematic view.
I'm using the English language and I consider it it's inadequate for the discussion, but this is what we have.
Irrespective of the language, the issue is the historicist perspective which is embedded in that idea. So, what is happening is that the smritis are arsha granthas. So, for the rishis, it has been given by rishis. So, when you think of updation, then it means that these texts were again written for a certain small period of time based on their contemporary ideas and that require continuous updation. So, that is not the case of smritis. The smritis, the Shruti Smriti, they are considered as the eyes. They are considered as the source from which the dharma shows forth. So they are eternal in that sense that dharma is eternal. Having said this, as I mentioned, our tradition is not frozen in time. So there have been discussions. The discussion is not that updation. Rather, the discussion is about understanding the fundamental teachings of the Smritis and how to use it to contextualize those teachings to various issues at various times, points of time. So that Dharma Shastra discussion have been happening. It is happening even today. So it never stopped. Yes, post-British, post-colonialism, the destruction of indigenous education system and the complete, later adoption of secular constitution and sidelining of the Dharma Shastra has ensured that the Dharma Shastras have been kept out of mainstream discussion. But within the pockets that it is there, it is still kept alive. Though in a very, should I say, in a very suppressed, in a very, very small sprinkles of study is present today, but it is still there. So it is not that some 11th century onwards there have been no Dharma Shastra works. In fact, it was in the medieval era, we have a new genre of Dharma Shastra texts called Shudrachara texts, which specifically focused on enumerating the acharams, the ideal dharmic methods for the Shudra Varna, which expanded upon the core vision of the Smritis into an independent treatise. Some 50 plus treatises were composed across India, which are collectively called as Shudrachara texts. This was done in the medieval period. The commentary on the Parashara Smriti by Swami Vidyaranya, it was done in the Vijayanagara period, which was much later than 11th century, right? Around that time only. But even in 16th, 17th century, we have texts on Stri Dharma, such as Stri Dharma Paddhati of Trayambaka Yajvan. Many other Stri Dharma texts are also there. So, we have this, the Nibandha texts such as Dharma Sindhu, Nirnaya Sindhu, Vaidyanatha Dikshita's, the Smriti Mukta Phala. All these are composed in the last 500 years, if I'm not mistaken. So even today, the fact that I have written this book, Chatuh Shloki Manusmriti, it is also an attempt to engage with that Dharma Shastra tradition, engage with that Vada tradition. And just recently, for example, in the Sringeri Sharda Peetham, there was a Vakyartha Sadas on Dharma Shastra, on the points of Dharma that was held. And in Matturu Rasolli, for a long period of time, such Vakyartha Sadas have been held on Dharma points. I think even the Kanchi Kamakoti Peetham also does organize such events. In the pre-independence era and post-independence era in the northern India, Swami Karpatri Maharaj and his students and his school of thoughts, lot of works in Hindi were written on Dharma Shastra, on Dharma. See, whether you agree with them or not, whether you have points of disagreement, whether it's a very different issue. The point is that there have been creation of new texts, there have been samvada, there have been continuously, even when it is not mainstream, even when the Dharma Shastra has been sidelined, among the scholarly traditional vidwans, among the traditional pockets that are remaining today, Dharma Shastra, debate, samvada, vada, it's still there. So it is not that it is dead. It is not that the tradition is dead. This tradition has greatly reduced in its, in its tejas, in its reputation, in its the way it was honored in the society. It was a Dharma Shastra Vidwan, a great scholar, Gaga Bhatta, who is called famous Gaga Bhatta, who devised the Samrajya Abhisheka for Shivaji Maharaj, from the great Bhatta family, right? So we have to understand that Dharma Shastra is still today. We have to mainstream it. So our work is mainstream it. Our work is to revive the study and of the Dharma Shastra in a mainstream manner. In the pockets it is already there, but now we have to mainstream it so that we can truly develop our Bharatiya Drishti, so that we can apply those teachings into different areas of governance, of society, of how we function, our different areas of cultural issues, religious issues, political issues that are facing us. So this is how I see the thing.
Fair enough. So, okay, how the last part of my question was, how should we bring about the circumstances in which we can reignite this tradition?
I think yes. Again, I think it is very important now. The one of the good developments is that a lot of stress has been given to IKS, Indian Knowledge Systems, and the Indian Knowledge System, of course, includes all the 14 plus 4 Vidyasthanas, and among the 14 Vidyasthanas, one of the Vidyasthana is Dharma Shastra. So I think it is a good opportunity, and we should revive this steady and systematic study of Dharma Shastra. There should be both support for a traditional format, the Shastriya Adhyayana of Dharma Shastra among the Shastriya portion, of Shastriya section of the society, but there should also be non-Shastriya methods of engagement with these texts in areas which are very relevant today, in draw frameworks, to draw teachings that can be utilized to address contemporary issues. Both have to go side by side. More people should study these texts by understanding the lens or the perspective from which these texts should be studied. If you start a study with same historicist perspective, with the same lens of social biases, preconceived biases, then such study will never be useful to us. So that will not be a real revival. The real revival will be when you approach Dharmashastra in the way it is supposed to be approached, in the way the traditional hermeneutics wants us to, tells us to approach. If even in a modern contemporary context, if we approach it in such a way, then I believe that a lot of good will come out of it. There should be, at the university level, at outside of the university, the organizations should come forward, should not, I know currently it is very politically problematic. I remember that, I think it was Delhi University recently, which had mentioned Manusmriti in one of the further readings or something, and after protest it was removed and replaced by Shukraniti or some other text. See, I believe it is not just about Manusmriti. If Manusmriti is too controversial, fine, you take Yagyavalkya Smriti, because the teachings of Dharmashastras remain same, more or less. They all share the same worldview. So if you find the Manu is so problematic, fine, you take up those texts whose names are not an impediment for you to engage in a open engagement, a genuine engagement. So such kind of engagement has to increase in one format or other format, and at the same time support for a traditional Shastriya way of engaging with the text has to also be revived upon. Support has to be given further. So both should go hand in hand, is what I strongly believe.
Fair enough. That's a very comprehensive answer. Any thoughts on how to propagate the conclusions of these discussions, of the discussion on Dharma and Shastra? Because we live in a very, let's say we live in a very messed up portion of the Kali-yuga right now. So having the Dharma discussions is one part, but propagating them amongst the populace is another.
See, I think more, all the three are important, the preserve, protect, and propagate. We have to start at the preserving, and the best way to preserve is to practice. So the problem starts here is that we all are attending the discussion here and go back to our own lives, and we don't even make an attempt to start one idea that we learn. So the beginning has to maybe made from there. So you take one principle of dharma and try to start orienting your life according to that. And I think that is the true beginning. And as far as then the rest of the things will come, the reason I wrote this book is for propagating this book. So in the context of this book itself, I'm just giving this as an example. There are multiple ways, you can buy the book, read the book, share the books with your friends, make them read, have a small book discussion amongst your own individual groups of people either online or in your own personal circles, and discuss these ideas. And then perhaps, through inspiration, you could take up study of more different texts, after this, take say Bhagavad Gita or any other text. So that could be one path of doing it. If somebody among the audience is interested in translating this book, I would love to have some translators volunteer to translate this into different languages, and if published, then that would be another way of propagating. While I'm using my own book as an example, the point is many such activities, all these discussions, satsangas, book reading, book discussion, or organizing talks. So if somebody in the audience wants to have a podcast or online talk or any other format, I'm always happy to engage with them on Dharma Shastra, on Dharma, etc. So there are many other such people amongst us who are working on Sanatana Dharma, who could be engaged on these things and whose work can be propagated. So propagation is all about, the greatest marketing is one done through word of mouth. And the more these ideas are discussed, be it on the social media, be it in your own families, with your own children, with your own spouses, parents, or whatever it is, with your own friend circle, in the colleges, in the schools, or in your offices. So the more you do it, the more, eventually there will be some substantial change. Unless, of course, there are some certain things that the governments can do, there are certain things that the institutions can do, but there are only limited number of things that the individuals can do. One of this is, engage with the book, engage with books like this, engage with our primary shastras, practice something, whatever is possible in life, and discuss this with your friends, family and all, and help those who are, doing this work in more serious manner. So these are some of the thoughts. I am not sure whether it really answered your question. Just some ideas I just wanted to share.
I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, Athole, you can go next.
Namaste Nitinji. So I have a question regarding the pramanas to understand dharma. So is Shabda the only valid pramana to understand dharma? And what is the role of Pratyaksha and Anumana in determining what is dharma and adharma? In fact, do Pratyaksha and Anumana have any role at all?
Very wonderful question. Shabda is the primary pramana, as Manusmriti itself says, Vedo Akhilam Dharma Moolam. So Veda is the infinite Veda is the Moola, is the foundation of Dharma. And the Smriti, because it follows the Veda, because it is Arshavachana, which is based on the Veda, given in a format of which is more accessible. The Shruti and Smriti, again Manusmriti says that they are the two eyes or two sources from which the light of Dharma shines forth. The reason why the Shastra Pramana, Shabda Pramana is the primary and ultimate source is that Dharma essentially, what is this Dharma? When you perform an action, it generates a karmic potency, the phala in the form of a potency called Punya and Papa, which eventually gives rise to result called Swarga, etc., that I already mentioned. Neither Punya can be seen with our eyes, nor Swarga can be seen with our eyes, nor can be seen with our any of the Indriyas, right? So this being the case, Pratyaksha cannot be used to determine what is Dharma and what is Adharma. Yes, there is a Pratyaksha comes into picture where in the Vyavahara section, in the legal jurisprudence, when you are resolving the disputes on the matter, you have to take into consideration the actual facts on the ground. There Pratyaksha definitely plays in the role. But if you are purely speaking about Achara and Prayaschitta, which is about Adrishta Phalas, there Pratyaksha has no role. Anumana has a role. Anumana is something which has to be anchored on something, right? So when you say that, when you see a smoke and then infer that there is a fire on the mountain, you are anchoring that operation of Anumana on the Pratyaksha. Similarly, Anumana can be anchored on the Shabda also. So that is what we do when we analyze the text. We are using logical inference. We are using our rational faculty, the Tarka. The Manusmriti says, Tarka should not be used as a weapon to dismantle the text, to discredit the text, because Tarka, the logical faculty, is a two-edged sword. It can be used, it will go wherever we swing it. But instead, it is also the logical faculty which uses the, proper hermeneutics method, proper interpretive text, tools, which is the means to have proper and in-depth understanding of the true import of the Shastra, right? So Anumana in the sense of anchored to Shabda is needed. Apart from this, of course, the Shabda, which is the primary pramana, Manusmriti itself gives 4 levels of pramana, so to speak, or 4 ways to contextualize the teachings of Dharma. The first is, of course, the Shruti Smriti, and then we have Sadachara, of the Shishtas, those who practice this, those who live a life of Dharma according to Shastra, their acharams, or our acharas of our own elders in the family. That is what Kulachara is. Or acharas of great personalities that we encounter in Itihasa Purana, such as Rama, Krishna, Yudhishthira, Vibhishana or Hanuman, all those people, right? So that is also one layer. And then finally we also have this layer called Atmanutushti, the self-satisfaction. And this is inner conscience. So this is again one area which is lot of confusion or misinterpretation is there. It is not that you are using Atmanutushti as independent pramana by excluding the rest of it. Rather, Atmanutushti is to be used in conjunction of rest of it. Because our intuition, our inner voice is often biased. It is often impure in the sense it is mixed with our Kama, Krodha, Lobha. So, we do not have a strong Vivekam in our mind. A Jnani will have a strong Vivekam. A great yogi can have a strong Vivekam. But normally we don't. Because see, in our Hridaya, the Bhagavan is there. The Angushta Matra Purusha is there. So ideally, if our mind is clear, if we are free from our Arishad Varga, Kama, Krodha, etc., then we are able to actually function from that Angushta Matra Purusha. We are able to, we can, at least theoretically, align our life, completely orient our life, completely in line with the Angushta Matra Purusha. Then, and only then we can say that we can use this Atmanutushti as a absolute principle. But in that case also, that Atmanutushti will not contradict Shastra. Because Shastra is telling the Dharma Adharma. But otherwise, in normal people, for all of us, Atmanutushti has to be used in conjunction with the Shabda Pramana. That Shabda Pramana gives the primary principle, generalized principles for broad conditions, and we have to analyze our own individual conditions in our life, where we are there, what are our options. Life is not black and blue, black and white. There are a number of shades of grey, and we may not be always be capable to select white option. So we have to try to choose the shade which is closer to white than which is closer to black. So basically in all these instances, the Atmanutushti will come into play. The idea is we have to choose that option wherein we don't feel guilty. We all have this inner guilt. We may fool a shopkeeper by not giving, by giving him 10 rupees less. But deep down we know that we did wrong. So this is inner guilt. So the Shastra says use Atmanutushti means you should do it in such a way that you do not feel guilt inside you. You should try your best to do what is right in a situation. And what is right again is to be tempered with, analyzed using some understanding of the Shastra. See, everybody cannot study all the Shastras. Everybody need not study all the Shastras. But we have to engage with the Shastra Parayana regularly with Gita or Puranas, Itihasas or any of these texts, so that we kind of root ourselves in the Shastriya worldview, so that in our day-to-day lives, we can take our decisions even subconsciously. These ideas of Dharma are subconsciously rooted in us. So one example is, I think, one of the Chinese traveler who came to India who noted that everybody is rooted in, good values such as truth, etc. in their day-to-day life. This was his writing, if I remember correctly. So how does this, that happened? That happened because society as a whole, they were rooted in this dharmic worldview. they grew up in that worldview. They internalize these teachings not necessarily by studying Manusmriti or Vedas or any other particular text, but through different methods, through, say, for example, natakas, through kavyas, through discussion in the in the households. The methods, the means could be many, but the worldview is what is important, and today that worldview is lost, so we have to restart that cycle.
I hope that answers the question, Advait. Saurav Verma again has a question. He can go next.
जी सर, मेरा एक छोटा सा प्रश्न है इंटरप्रिटेशंस को लेकर। मनुस्मृति के दूसरे अध्याय में 11वें श्लोक में नास्तिक की डेफिनेशन उन्होंने दी है कि नास्तिको वेद निंदका, लेकिन क्योंकि मैंने इस पर काम किया है तो मैं कूर्म पुराण को देखता हूँ। कूर्म पुराण के दूसरे अध्याय के 21वें खंड के 45वें श्लोक में वो पंक्ति दूषक का लक्षण करते हैं, और मैं गीता प्रेस से कोट कर रहा हूँ उसको। पंक्ति दूषक में वो कहते हैं कि नास्तिक और वेद निंदक दोनों ही अलग चीज है। ये तो एक अलग पंक्ति होगी, लेकिन अगर क्योंकि नास्तिक और वेद निंदक, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि जो कमेंट्रीज हुई है मनुस्मृति के लेकर ये हमारे आसपास जो ट्रांसलेशन हुए हैं, उन्होंने नास्तिक को ही नास्तिक जो है वही वेद निंदक इस तरीके से उन्होंने रखने का मत स्थापित करने का प्रयास किया है, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि ऐसा है नहीं है। नास्तिक और वेद निंदक दोनों ही अलग चीज है। अगर दोनों अलग चीज नहीं होती तो कूर्म पुराण में जो पंक्ति दूषक का जो लक्षण मिलता है, पंक्ति दूषक में वो दोनों अलग नहीं होते, फिर वो एक ही होते। इसके अतिरिक्त हमें अन्य उदाहरण मतलब अन्य जगहों पर ऐसा वृतांत देखने को मिलता है कि जिसमें नास्तिक और वेद निंदक दोनों ही अलग चीज है। तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जो दूसरे अध्याय के 11वें श्लोक में उन्होंने नास्तिक की जो अवधारणा प्रस्तुत की है वो दोनों ही अलग अलग है, लेकिन वर्तमान में जो व्याख्याकार उपलब्ध है हमारे सामने, या हमने जिस तरीके का अपनी तरफ से अर्थ का ग्रहण किया है वो गलत किया है। इसके विषय में आपका क्या मंतव्य है?
बड़ी ही वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन. I have not reflected much on this particular aspect of the question. Especially I have not consulted the Pura Puran that you mentioned. But मेरा मत ये है कि just brief idea of what I am thinking is कि आप नास्तिक और वेद निंदक को दो पूरे अलग मान के भी चलेंगे तो भी वहाँ एक ही कंटेक्स्ट में दोनों को बोला गया है, तो they will be related is what I believe. So अगर आप नास्तिक को सिंपली वेद को प्रमाण नहीं मानने वाले एक्सेप्ट करेंगे और वेद निंदक उनको जो they will go out of their way वेद का निंदा करने का और वेदों का मत का निंदा करने का, वेद में जो प्रैक्टिस है मत का निंदा करने का, तो इट्स पॉसिबल ऐसा भी हम देख सकते हैं कि ये टू एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ द सेम थिंग इन द सेंस कि जो नास्तिक है जो सिर्फ वेद को अप्रमाण मानता है, और जो दूसरा वाला है जो उससे एक स्टेप आगे जाता है, जो ना सिर्फ उसको अप्रमाण मानता है बल्कि वो अपने शब्द से, अपने एक्शन से, अपने सोच से वेद का निंदा करता है, उसके बारे में अपशब्द बोलते हैं। तो वो दोनों को यहाँ इस दो रिलेटेड आइडियाज, दो रिलेटेड इसको यहाँ पे इस श्लोक में उनको बारे में बताया गया है बोल के ऐसा मत है। मैं अभी उस पुराण जो आपने बोला उसमें देखा नहीं कि उसमें उनका व्याख्या कैसे दिया गया है, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि इवन इफ हम उनको एक ही देख के समझेंगे तो भी उसमें भी ये दो पहलू रहेंगे कि जो नास्तिक है जो अप्रमाण मानता है, तो इवेंचुअली वो जो अप्रमाण मानता है इवेंचुअली वो एटलीस्ट अपने सोच में वो वेद को निंदा ही इन सेंस करता है क्योंकि वो वेद को प्रमाण नहीं मानता है। तो ऐसा भी हम सोच सकते हैं। तो मुझे लगता है ये अब कोई भी इंटरप्रिटेशन लेंगे तो अल्टीमेटली द एसेंस जो उस श्लोक का जो गर्भ है, वो एसेंस है, वो यही है कि जो वेद को प्रमाण नहीं मानता है और वेद के बारे में निंदा करता है, वो दोनों निंदनीय है, ऐसा उसका एसेंस है मुझे लगता है। अभी इसका और भी कुछ पहलू है तो मैं अभी इस बारे में स्टडी नहीं किया है, मैंने इस बारे में रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं किया है।
महोदय, एक बौधायन धर्म सूत्र है, क्योंकि मैंने धर्म सूत्र पढ़े हैं, तो बौधायन धर्म सूत्र पर, क्योंकि हमारे उत्तर भारत में उमेश चंद्र पांडे नाम के विद्वान है धर्मशास्त्र को लेकर, तो उन्होंने हिंदी कमेंट्रीज भी की है, और गोविंद स्वामी जिन्होंने इसमें विवरण वृत्ति लिखी है। तो अगर हम उनकी दृष्टि में देखें तो जो मतलब रेफरेंस देते हैं नास्तिक का, तो बौधायन धर्म सूत्र में 3:3:22 में जो विवरण वृत्ति करते हैं, तो वो कहते हैं दुर्जना नास्तिका, जो दुर्जन व्यक्ति है, जो खराब व्यक्ति है, जो किसी की सत्ता को एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं करता है, वो नास्तिक है। क्योंकि अगर हम देखें, क्योंकि मनुस्मृति में भी क्या है कि जैसे विष्णु धर्म सूत्र को ले, सॉरी विष्णु महापुराण को ले, तो विष्णु महापुराण भी यही कहता है कि सतयुग, जो चारों युगों के अंत में जब दोबारा सतयुग आता है, तो सतयुग में पुनः एक मनु की उत्पत्ति होती है, वही एक स्मृति की रचना करता है। क्योंकि शास्त्रों में तो गड़बड़ है, जैसे महाभारत में देखें, इवन महाभारत में स्वयं कहते हैं कि जो 7वें मनवंतर में जो वैवस्वत मनु उत्पन्न होते हैं, वैवस्वत मनु ही वेद वेदांग एवं स्मृतियों की सृष्टि करते हैं। तो टेक्सुअल जो देखें, टेक्स्ट का ट्रांसफर जो होता है हमारे यहाँ, क्योंकि मैं इवन महाभारत पर वर्तमान में काम कर रहा हूँ, तो मैंने जैसे देखा है 3 चैप्टर्स के अंदर ही मुझे लगभग 200 के आसपास श्लोक महाभारत से ही मिल गए हैं। उसमें भी वही मतलब कि बहुत सारे श्लोक रिपीट हो रहे हैं। तो हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि जो वेद निंदक है, खासकर कि वेद निंदक और नास्तिक दोनों ही एक चीज हो, क्योंकि जो इंटरप्रिटेट किया गया है, खासकर हिंदी जितने सारे व्याख्याकार रहे हैं हमारे उत्तर भारत के अंदर, या संस्कृत की कमेंट्री को आधार बना के उन्होंने जिस तरीके से किया, वो गलत है। क्योंकि जैसे मैंने मनुस्मृति के श्लोकों की लिस्ट दी कि मनुस्मृति में जो श्लोक है उनमें ही मतभेद मिल रहा है हमें, जैसे कि कहीं 2614, कहीं 2625, 69, 85, इस तरीके से अलग अलग अंतर है। जैसे गंगानाथ झा का जो मेधा तिथि का संस्करण बंगाल से पब्लिश हुआ एशियाटिक सोसाइटी से, उसमें सबसे कम मिल रहा है, लेकिन कुल्लूक वाले में जाएंगे तो उसमें सबसे ज्यादा मिल रहा है। इसके अतिरिक्त अगर हम गोविंद राज का देखें तो भी हमें अलग अलग मिल रहा है, लेकिन कॉमेंट्री में भी अलग। जैसे कि आपने मुझे एक बुक रेफर की थी, भारूषी की टीका, भारूषी की टीका जो मद्रास विश्वविद्यालय से पब्लिश हुई है, उसकी कमेंट्री, और जो भारतीय विद्या भवन से 1932 के आसपास जो पब्लिश हुई है 9 टीकाओं के साथ में, उनकी कमेंट्री को जब हम दोनों को मैच करते हैं, दोनों में जमीन और आसमान का अंतर है। तो मुझे तो नहीं लगता, जैसे मेरा चिंतन है इस आधार को लेके, कि टेक्स्ट के साथ में कोई गड़बड़ी नहीं हुई है। मुझे लगता है पूरी तरीके से गड़बड़ी हुई है, बाकी उसका ट्रांसलेशन एंड इंटरप्रिटेशन भी गलत ही हुआ है।
आपका पर्सनल मत हो सकता है, मैं इस बारे में कुछ बोल नहीं सकता हूँ, लेकिन मेरा जो समझ है वो यही है कि जो कोई भी ये टेक्स्ट है, ट्रांसमिशन में ऑब्वियसली देयर विल बी स्क्राइबल एरर्स, और लॉन्ग लाइन ऑफ ट्रांसमिशन जो होता है वो हमेशा उसमें जो कुछ एरर्स और वगैरह तो रहता ही रहता है। लेकिन आप पूरा आप ओवरऑल व्यू देखोगे तो कोई भी कमेंट्री, कोई भी वर्जन ऑफ मनुस्मृति आप लीजिए, जो या आप पैट्रिक ओलिवेले का जो क्रिटिकल एडिशन उन्होंने प्रिपेयर किया है, जो बहुत सारा जो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स अवेलेबल है और एडिशंस अवेलेबल है उसको लेके, तो वो क्रिटिकल एडिशन और वल्गेट एडिशन में आप माइनर डिटेल्स में जाओगे तो जरूर आपको इसमें अलग उसमें अलग ऐसे दिखेगा, लेकिन मैक्रो व्यू आप देखोगे तो उसमें ज्यादा कुछ फर्क नहीं है। जो मैक्रो टीचिंग्स को आप देखोगे तो उसमें ज्यादा कुछ डिफरेंस नहीं है। ये टेक्स्ट की बात हुई, रही बात इंटरप्रिटेशन की, मैं फिर से मेरा मत यही है कि अलग अलग भाष्यकार अलग अलग तरीके से इंटरप्रेट कर सकते हैं, एंड कभी कभी कुछ इंटरप्रिटेशन हमको गलत लग सकती है, एंड दैट इज डेफिनेटली ओके। अभी इसमें भी इट्स पॉसिबल, हमारे शास्त्र ग्रंथ का नेचर ही ऐसा है, इट इज ओपन फॉर मल्टीपल लेयर्स ऑफ मीनिंग्स। सो जरूरी नहीं है कि जैसा आपको लग रहा है कि ये जो वेद निंदक और नास्तिक पद जो अलग इंटरप्रिटेशन करना है वही सही है, वो सही है, वो अलग भी हो सकता है, साथ में भी हो सकता है, लेकिन मेरा मत ये है कि दोनों टाइप से आप करोगे तो भी अल्टीमेट एंड ऑफ द डे जो मीनिंग है, जो एसेंस है, वो सेम आ रहा है। उस एसेंस मीनिंग को आप अलग अलग तरीके से आप उसको एक्सपैंड कर सकते हो। आप मेरा पुस्तक में देखोगे कि मैंने काफी जगह मेधा तिथि को कोट किया है, काफी जगह कुल्लुक बट्टक का कोट किया है, काफी जगह कुछ और लोगों को भी कोट किया है, एंड एक दो कुछ जगह पे मैंने अपना इनसाइट्स भी उसमें डाला है। मेरा मत ये है कि ये जो टेक्स्ट ओरिजिनल आर्ष ग्रंथ है, वो बहुत गहरा है और वो नित्य है, वो एटर्नल है। इस वजह से उसका कई लेयर्स ऑफ मीनिंग्स उसमें छुपा हो सकता है, जो अलग अलग भाष्यकार अलग अलग एस्पेक्ट को हाईलाइट किया जा सकता है। इट्स पॉसिबल कुछ भाष्यकार गलत भी किया हो, क्योंकि हम ऋषि और भाष्यकार में डिफरेंस हमेशा करना चाहिए। जो आर्ष ग्रंथ है, स्पेशली धर्मशास्त्र में आर्ष ग्रंथ जो स्मृतियां है और जो बाद में भाष्यकारों ने जो भाष्य लिखा है, इसमें हमेशा एक डिफरेंस रखना चाहिए। सो एक भाष्यकार अलग अलग जगह अलग अलग भाष्यकार अपने मत के हिसाब से जो समझ में आया इंटरप्रेट किया, उसमें कुछ चीजें हमको सही नहीं लग सकते, इट्स ओके। वो मेरे लिए वो बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है। हम वो एक तात्विक चर्चा है कि एक पर्टिकुलर श्लोक का करेक्ट एग्जैक्ट मीनिंग क्या हो सकता है, मोस्ट प्रोबेबल मीनिंग क्या हो सकता है, एंड वो डिबेटेबल भी है। एंड हमारे शास्त्र परंपरा ज्ञान परंपरा ऐसे ही आगे बढ़ती गई है कि वाद संवाद को लेके, बट इससे हमारा जो ओवरऑल धर्म का जो ज्ञान है, जो ट्रेडिशन है, जो टीचिंग है, उसमें इसमें कोई हानि नहीं होगा। बल्कि ये जो बड़े बड़े विषयों पे धर्मशास्त्र ट्रेडिशन आचार्यों के बीच में मतभेद हुआ है, बड़े बड़े विषय पे, जैसे एक जगह पे जो मेधेतति तो अनुगमन को निंदा करते हैं, लेकिन अपरार कांड दूसरे लोग अनुगमन को अपहोल्ड करते हैं। तो ये जो आप बोल रहे हैं तो बहुत छोटा इश्यू हो गया। और जो आप ये बोल रहे हैं कि टेक्सचुअल वर्शंस में, मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स में जो डिफरेंसेस पता चल रहा है, इट्स पॉसिबल। मैं वही बोला कि ये सब टेक्स्ट ट्रांसमिशन में बहुत एरर्स रहते हैं, बहुत स्क्राइबल एरर्स रहते हैं। कुछ जगह पे कम श्लोक होते हैं, कुछ जगह पे ज्यादा श्लोक होते हैं। लेकिन मैं फिर भी रिपीट करूंगा कि वी शुड नॉट मिस द फॉरेस्ट फॉर द ट्रीज। हम ट्रीज को पकड़ने के चक्कर में लार्जर विजन को खोना नहीं चाहिए। इनफैक्ट जैसा कि मैं बोला, क्रिटिकल एडिशन जो प्रिपेयर किया गया है, उस क्रिटिकल एडिशन में दे यूज मेनी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स, एंड उसमें वो यही नोटिस किया कि बहुत सारे रीडिंग्स में थोड़ा सा डिफरेंसेस है। लेकिन आप अल्टीमेटली जब मीनिंग की बात आएंगे, जब टीचिंग की बात आएगा, जो मोटा मोटी जो मैक्रो व्यू में आप देखोगे, वो धर्म का टीचिंग में जो क्रिटिकल एडिशन हो या जो वल्गेट एडिशन हो, उसमें ज्यादा डिफरेंस नहीं है। सो मुझे लगता है ये विजन हमको मिस नहीं करना चाहिए कि बिकॉज वी आर स्टडीइंग इन एकेडमिक सेंस, वी आर गोइंग डीप इनटू द टेक्स्ट, डीप इनटू डिफरेंट थिंग्स, our idea should always try to reconcile them philosophically और theological। अगर हम उसको नहीं कर पा रहे एंड कुछ इश्यू से, जरूर हमको उसको सामने लेके आना चाहिए, उसमें कोई गलत नहीं है। लेकिन हमको वी शुड ऑलवेज हैव इन माइंड दैट जो ये आर्ष ग्रंथ है, जो ये टेक्स्ट है, देयर विल ऑलवेज बी डिफरेंट लेयर्स ऑफ मीनिंग। जो हम अभी एक अवस्था में है, उसको पढ़ रहे हैं, उस एक लेवल से हमको एक मीनिंग समझ में आया है, एंड लेकिन हम उसमें और गहरे में जाएंगे तो जरूर उसका और डीपर मीनिंग समझ में आएगा। अभी मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल देता हूँ कि कुछ जगह पे, अभी मुझे वो श्लोक का नंबर्स वगैरह याद नहीं है, वो ब्राह्मी भूत होने की बात होती है, जो ब्राह्मण के कंटेक्स्ट में बोल रहे हैं, एंड सारे जो कमेंटेटर्स है वो उसमें उस ब्राह्मण को मीनिंग ये निकाला है कि वो ब्रह्म ज्ञान के लिए अधिकारी होने भर का जैसे द्विजत्व मिलता है, उसको परस्यू करने का, उस तरीके से उसका मीनिंग निकाला गया है। एंड उसमें कोई गलत नहीं है जैसा मैं समझता हूँ, लेकिन मेरा पर्सनल मानना है कि उसमें और डीपर एक मीनिंग है। वहां पे ब्राह्मी भूत होने का एक मीनिंग है कि जो ब्राह्मणत्व और ब्राह्मण्य, जो ब्राह्मण एज ए रिचुअल स्टेट, उसकी भी बात हो रही है। अभी इसका मैं अभी कहीं पे लिखा नहीं हूँ डिटेल में, तो कभी लिखूंगा तो जरूर शेयर करूंगा। तो मेरा मत ये है कि मुझे जब मैं रिचुअल स्टेट ऑफ वर्ण के बारे में स्टडी कर रहा था, तब जब मैं ये वर्स देखा, तब मुझे रियलाइज हुआ ये श्लोक उस मीनिंग में को भी देता है, लेकिन बाकी भाष्यकार ने उस मीनिंग को वहां देख नहीं पाए। लेकिन मेरा मत ये नहीं है कि वो गलत है और मैं सही हूं, क्योंकि इस केस में मुझे लगता है दोनों सही है, दोनों अलग अलग लेवल ऑफ मीनिंग है। ये मेरा मेरा मत हमेशा ऐसा रहा है कि टू टेक ए कॉम्प्रहेंसिव व्यू of things, to accept that there are multiple interpretations, multiple levels of interpretations which are equally valid at their own level is possible. ऐसा मेरा ईशावास्य उपनिषद में भी मैंने ऐसे ही प्रस्तुत किया है, और इस मनुस्मृति के मामले में मेरा यही मत है।
जी
I think Advait has another question. He can go ahead. And sir, let me know if it exceeds the time limit. We can end the space after this question.
Yes, another 5-10 minutes should be good enough for me. Yeah.
Okay, so Advait, go ahead.
Okay, so what is the exact relationship between Jaiminiya Dharma Sutra and Dharma Shastras like Manusmriti?
I think to put it in a very simple manner, the purpose of Jaiminiya Dharma Sutra is to interpret, is to resolve apparent contradictions, apparent disputes or doubts in interpreting the Purva Bhaga of Veda, which deals with Dharma. Right? Just as in the Brahma Sutra, the Upanishadic teaching is understood, how to interpret them, how to understand them, resolving any doubts related to them. Whereas Dharma Shastra, the Smritis, they tell us the content of what Dharma is. So it is an elaboration on the content which is present in the Veda. The Jaiminiya Dharma Sutra focuses on the interpretation part. How to resolve the differences, how to resolve confusions, doubts when you study. Therefore, the same methods of interpretation of Mimamsa are also adopted by Dharma Shastra authors to interpret the Dharma Shastra text. So, the Mimamsa Nyayas are utilized for interpreting even the Dharma Shastra text. So, Dharma Shastra or the Smritis and other Granthas, their purpose is to teach what is the content of the Dharma. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita also teaches about karma, etc. But their Bhagavad Gita's purpose is to teach how to perform dharma, how to perform action. But again, for the content of that action, you have to refer to Dharma Shastra, something which even Bhagavan Krishna says, for the matters of karya, akarya, you have to refer to Shastra. And what is this Shastra that he is saying? It is of course the Vedas, Smritis, etc. I hope this clears.
Yes, and also, do all Sampradayas agree on the interpretations of Dharma Shastra as well as Jaiminiya Dharma Sutra?
I think the Mimamsa is a very robust tradition, and within Mimamsa also we have this Prabhakara and Jaiminiya, Kumarila Bhatta school and Prabhakara school. That difference is also there. As far as other traditions are there, they have different views, a different kind of approach to the school of Mimamsa. Since I cannot go in any detail onto those aspects because this is very complicated subject, and my own reading is limited on how these different schools take or approach Mimamsa. There are always, there are, especially on the Darshanika scale, there are disagreements between different schools of Darshanas and the Mimamsa school of Darshana. But all of them utilize the Nyayas, the interpretive methods given by Mimamsa. To my knowledge, all of them use it in one format or the other format. Especially in the Advaita tradition, at the Vyavaharika level, Bhatta Mimamsa is accepted by and large. But the disagreement is at the Darshanika level when it comes to Upanishads and the and the moksha and such things. And Dharma Shastra, again, Dharma Shastra in the sense of all these smritis, they're largely considered as pramana for all the major sampradayas to the best of my knowledge. But again, here it differs from sampradaya to sampradaya, how they utilize the text and how much. So, for example, some sampradayas give more weightage to Itihasa Puranas, and some sampradayas give more weightage to, say for example, Bhagavata Mahapurana. Some sampradayas give more weightage to Mahabharata. In Advaita, for example, Bhagwan Bhashyakara is described as Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam. So he is considered as Alaya for Shruti, Smriti and Purana. So we give importance to all of them, Shruti, Smriti, Itihasa Puranas, and as such, because of the greater importance to Smritis, we are also called as Smartha. The Advaita tradition is also called as Smartha for that reason. So, but I believe that, that if we take a larger view, then the Dharma Shastras in a very larger sense of the definition, which includes the Vedas on one hand, the Smritis, the bulk of the Smritis in the center, and the Itihasa Puranas, then all the Sampradayas, whichever come, they anchor themselves to some or the other text for Dharma. In the Itihasa Puranas also, they reiterate the teachings of the Smritis in one format or the other format. And even somebody like, Kalidasa, in his Kavya, I forgot which Kavya and where, in some context, he is saying, just like the Smritis follow the Shruti, and then he describes some poetical, some aspect. So even somebody like a Kalidasa who belong to, necessarily belong to some, I am not aware of which sampradaya he belonged to or somebody. He was basically a great poet. Even he recognizes the importance of Smriti. So I think this is one area wherein research has to be done, because even today I often hear people say that Shankaracharya had nothing to do with Smritis, or Shankaracharya only focused on Vedas, Vedanta and all. But the fact is, in his Bhashyas, I have collated at least 35 to 40 instances wherein Shankaracharya quotes specifically Manusmriti. He has also quotes many other texts such as Gautama Dharma Sutra and several other texts. But he specifically quotes Manusmriti for at least, I think, more than 35 instances. So this kind of work needs to be done with respect to other acharyas also, to know the extent of the reliance upon the core Smriti Shastras, the core Smriti texts such as Manusmriti, Yagyavalkya Smriti, Daksha Smriti, Parashara Smriti, Narada Smriti, and a couple of other texts among the works of these acharyas.
I hope that answers the question. I think the space has gone on for over 2 hours, and I think we should stop here. Thank you, Nitin ji, for taking your time out and answering our questions so comprehensively. It was pleasure and an honor hosting you. We are looking forward to your next book, and we would be happy to host you again.
Thank you very much for a wonderful conversation. It was I really enjoyed the questions and discussion. Thank you very much. I hope all the listeners, those who have read the book, do rate the book on Amazon, put your comment there, share on social media with your circle. Those who have not read the book, my request you to go please buy the book, read the book, and again share, comment and discuss among your circle. Thank you very much. Namaste.